This is where I think electronic drums are headed in the next 5 to 10 years. What's up? My name is Justin. Welcome to 625 Drums, the place to keep on top of all things Edrum related. Hope you're having an awesome day. Now, this is just a guess video because I really have no idea. Like, every company on earth could release a new drum set tomorrow for all I know. Electronic drums are always changing, so you can never really predict exactly what's going to happen. But I've spent a lot of time thinking about electronic drums, researching the history of electronic drums, and of course, I'm keeping on top of, what's selling a lot and stuff. So I have a general idea of what might happen. Here are 5 things. Let me know what your 5 things you think are going to happen in the next 10 years are down in the comments below. So let's start off the list with number 1. Electronic drums are going to get a lot larger. Now, I realize there are a bunch of drummers out there, especially in Europe, where they don't want electronic drums to be, the size of an acoustic drum set. I've had some comments in the past that people have said, Justin, why in the world would you buy an acoustic-sized electronic drum set that defeats the purpose of electronic drums in general? Well, really, it doesn't defeat the purpose. It defeats your purpose for electronic drums. Some people purposely buy electronic drums just because it's the only thing that will fit in their apartment. But for a lot of people, most drummers that I talk to, because I get tons of emails and messages and stuff, electronic drummers want a large electronic drum set. That's what I hear over and over and over again. And that's the main complaint about Roland drum sets. And that's my main complaint with Roland drum sets and Yamaha drum sets. On average, they're the smallest drum sets when you compare them, price-wise against other competitors. So the trend that we've been seeing in the last couple of years is electronic drum sets are getting larger and larger and larger. Take a look at ATV. They just released their A-Drums line, which is an acoustic drum set with electronic components in the shells. All right, we've seen the Elisa Strike Pro and Elisa Strike drum sets. They're selling like crazy. I know a guy at a music store, and he said that we don't even have time to set up one as a demo unit. The moment it gets shipped to our door, someone buys it out from under us, so no one can actually play this drum set because we don't have enough to put one on the show floor. So Elisa Strike Pro is grabbed a lot of attention, and the number one thing is that it's a large electronic drum set with a lot of drums, a lot of cymbals. That's what drummers want. I hear it time and time again. Also, take a look at the new Simmons SD2000 drum set. I'm not a fan of that drum set at all, but I do like the sizes of the cymbals and the drums. I believe they're all 11-inch drums, if my memory is correct. So a larger electronic drum set. Of course, that one's not acoustic sized, but it's only like $1,200 or so. So you can't expect it to be acoustic sized at that price point. And that's just a few drum sets. We also have the Alesis DM10 MK2 Pro. We have all the drum sets from Joe Becky, from Diamond, from Field, from Drum Tech. All these manufacturers that take acoustic drum shells, they put, custom shell wraps on them, they put electronic components in, sometimes using metal cymbals. So the entire direction of the industry is going for larger and larger drums. Now, we've even seen the old guard of electronic drums, Roland. They've even started making their electronic drums larger. You didn't think that would happen, did you? But at least on their very, very high-end line, the TD50, they finally have the 14-inch snare everyone's been asking for all this time. So they finally have that on the TD50 KV and the K version. Usually that's something that they would, leave only for the very, very high end, but they left it on the K version as well. Also, the TD50K and KV have that 18-inch ride cymbal, the digital ride cymbal. Those two pads are Roland's competitive advantage right now. They have the best ride cymbal and the best snare drum in the electronic drum space. There are people that have bought a TD50 instead of other modules because they wanted that darn ride cymbal and that snare because they're very, very good. But that's what their current claim to fame is. I don't even know if anyone would have thought that Roland would finally go to the 14-inch snare. People have been asking them for it. They kept saying no. Finally, it's out there. And it's because they've been forced to. The market wants larger electronic drums. I see this over and over again when people are asking me what drum set to buy. People want a large electronic drum set. We're done with 8-inch pads. That's a thing of the past, and that's where electronic drums are going to move to in the next decade. Number 2, electronic drum modules are going to get a lot better in the future. I mean, take a look at this Cat Percussion KT4 right here. This was unthinkable a decade ago because the sounds on this are so good. They're not perfect or anything, but they're so good compared to what has been available in the past for $500. $500 drum modules used to suck really bad. This has decent sounds inside of it. And then on the very high end, we see the Pearl Mimic Pro, which has, the best sounds in the market for $2,200. But don't think that, the best sounds are going to be stuck in the $2,000 range. Those features, those sounds always trickle down eventually to the rest of the drum modules underneath it. If this Mimic drum module sells well, Pearl might make a nerfed version of it and sell it for $1,000. It doesn't have as many drum sets in it. Maybe the processor isn't quite as powerful, whatever, but they might eventually make something that's a little bit cheaper. We have no idea. So this is a trend. Electronic drum modules are just going to keep sounding better and better and better. And eventually we're going to get to a point where people will stop saying electronic drums sound cheesy, because eventually they won't sound cheesy unless you're spending $500 on a cheaper electronic drum set. So that's where electronic drum modules are headed. I feel like we'll eventually see more cell phone apps to control your drum modules. Right now, Yamaha is the only one that really is going all in on apps. Roland made a couple of apps, and now they don't even support it with iOS 11, so you can't even use those apps now. So yeah, I feel like cell phone apps will be more prominent. I feel like we're going to see touchscreens more, because remember, processors keep getting cheaper. You know, what this phone can do, this iPhone 7, what this can do was unthinkable just 10 years ago. So we have no idea where drum modules are headed, but we know that they're going to sound a lot better in the future. Number 3, Roland is eventually going to switch over to only digital pads. You know, for the longest time, electronic drum modules, they all use 1/4-inch cables, stereo 1/4-inch cables to go to the drum module. This was a thing. Now, Roland is testing the waters of using, USB cables running from your ride cymbal, from your snare to your drum module. They only have 3 ports on that drum module. It feels like they're testing the waters, trying to see if this is a good idea. So they tested it with the TD50, and eventually they'll probably fully implement it in the TD60 or the TD70. And Roland's not the first company to not use 1/4-inch cables on their electronic drums. We've seen companies use XLR cables. We've even seen a company use, I don't remember what the connection was, but I think the company was Mark Drum, where they plugged into the drum rack itself and then the drum rack fed into the module. It was kind of a weird concept. I didn't see it around very much, but that was a thing out there. Moving on to number 4, rubber pads will finally die. Now, they'll probably always be a thing on $300 electronic drum sets, but rubber pads, they've stayed too long. Rubber pads were only a thing for this long because Roland had all the patents on mesh heads. Now that finally Roland doesn't have the patents anymore, anyone can make a mesh drum set, and finally we'll see what's happened in Europe already. Europe has tons of companies where they're all having these mesh drums for like $600, have a full mesh drum set. And we've seen Simmons come out with a new drum set like this earlier this year. I did a first impressions video on it. I don't remember the model number, but you could buy it on sale briefly for like $350, and it blew my mind that you could buy a mesh drum set for that amount of money. But again, this is something that we'll see more often, and hopefully rubber pads will finally go away, because not many people actually like rubber pads. Most of us, we only buy a rubber pad drum set just because it's the cheapest thing out there. Moving on to number 5, if the Mimic does well, we could see more partnerships like this in the future. So the Pearl Mimic, of course, is a partnership between Steven Slate Drums and Pearl, the drum company. The whole idea was conceived back in like 2013 or something. It takes a few years for this to get to market. And so that now we've seen success with the Pearl Mimic. We don't know how good the sales numbers are, but if it sells well, we could see TuneTrack maybe partner with a drum module company. Imagine if TuneTrack partnered with Roland. It'll never happen. It probably will never happen. But if it did happen, that would be an amazing thing for the electronic drum industry. What if Get Good Drums made a partnership with Yamaha? Like, there are lots of VST companies out there. I just want to see more drum software companies partner with hardware companies and make some truly awesome electronic drum sets that have good sounds. It might happen eventually if the Pearl Mimic does well. And then finally, one more prediction. This is just an off-the-wall idea. It probably won't happen, but who knows? What if a 4th material emerges that everyone starts using instead of mesh, instead of rubber, instead of silicone? Because those are the 3 main materials that people use. You have mesh drum sets, which is what is becoming really popular now. You have the rubber drum sets, which companies are trying to move away from. You have silicone pads, which is like Aquarian on-head pads, which is the Yamaha pads. And then there's nothing else really. I feel like a 4th material could emerge in the future that is just better than mesh, that's just better than the rubber pads. I have no idea where that idea came from, but I have a feeling eventually there's going to be something that competes with mesh and rubber. There's like something else out there that could be better than both of those. I just have no idea what it might be. I'm still waiting for the day when you just buy drum shells and you clip on this little mini force field, and then you can play in complete silence. I'm waiting for the year 3000 when that becomes the future of electronic drums. Until then, we're going to just have to stick with mesh pads. Those are just my thoughts. I'm really interested to read what you guys think. What are your top 5 things you think will happen in the next 10 years of electronic drums? I hope you guys have an awesome day, and I'll see you in a few.